Hey everybody, Mark Callahan, Mr. Saltwater Tank here. Whenever I bring out my guides, people always ask me, they say, well, what's in the no-nonsense guide for setting up a saltwater tank volume 2? Or what's in the cruise control guide? Well, today instead of telling you what's in each guide, I wanted to talk to you specifically about the cruise control guide because it's by far the one that I get the most questions about. And I wanted to do it by sharing with you some feedback of what people who have purchased the guide in the past had to say about the guide and show you specifically what they're talking about so you understand where they're coming from. The first person to write in was Brandon. He says, I love it. No more fires to put out when I get home. My girlfriend is like, now you're bored because you don't have to work on your fish tank. LOL, laughing out loud. I said, now I finally get to enjoy it. Why have a saltwater tank if you can't enjoy it? Now Brandon goes on to write about how setting up a ritual around your water changes has helped his tank. So let's dive in and have a look at what he's talking about. One thing that Brandon started doing that had him enjoy his tank again is that he started to use rituals. Now, ritual is doing the same thing the same way every single time. Let's look at it specifically in the area of water changes. I recommend you do a once a week 5% water change. Now, that's not too hard to figure out. However, here's the bonus for you that I want to make sure that you all get. As soon as you do your water change, immediately go back and mix up your salt water for your next water change. Why do you want to do that? Two reasons. Number one, when you have your salt water mixed up already on hand, you're going to be least likely to skip that water change. Think about it. You're sitting around and you're like, oh, I need to do my water change tomorrow, but I haven't mixed up my salt water. I'll just do it the next day. The next day rolls around, oh, I forgot again, I'll do it the next day. We all know how that slippery slope starts. Okay, so that's one piece of it, but here's the key takeaway. When you have salt water mixed up on hand in advance, you always have one piece of a good emergency plan in place. Mixing up salt water isn't something you can do in 1 to 2 minutes when you're in the middle of a tank emergency. You have it mixed up, ready to go, the salinity's right. You know that if you need to take your fish out of your tank in a hurry, put them in a container, you got the salt water right there, ready to go. And let me expand on this again. When you mix your salt water up in advance, it's okay to let it sit without being agitated like with a pump for 2 to 3 days. Especially true for those of you who have fish-only tanks that are using, per se, regular grade salt. Now, if you have a reef tank or you're using more complex salts, if you're going to have that water sit for more than 2 to 3 days, you want to keep it agitated. Now, this doesn't have to be very complex. You can just put a power head down in your bucket, keep that water stirred up. Now, for me, I don't have a big, large holding tank. For those of you who don't have a lot of space or have nano tanks, you might mix your salt water in here. You're just like me. I mix my salt water in buckets just like this. Again, same thing. Small power head, just drop it in here, let it circulate. It's not going to draw a lot of electricity. You just only have to worry about heat. Not a problem there. There you go. There's one piece of the tank cruise control guide. Using rituals, doing a weekly 5% water change. Once you've done your water change, immediately go back and mix up that salt water so it's ready to go for next time. Thanks, Brandon, for writing in. I'm glad to hear that you're enjoying your tank. Next quote I want to share with you comes from Carveth. He says, you emphasize the easiness of it, but cruise control is much more than making my life easier. It is key and essential, in caps, in keeping a healthy environment for the animals entrusted to me. It is hard to keep my parameters constant without it. Whenever I talk about water parameters, without fail, the next topic that comes up is dosing. Specifically, if I have this type of coral, what do I need to dose? Or if I have that type of coral, what do I need to dose? Now, I'll lay that out for you in the guide, but I want to take it a step further and talk about automating your dosing, because the cruise control guide is about, well, cruise control, automating things, having it automatic so you don't have to do it. So let's have a look at automating in one area, and I want to share with you something that I'm adding on to the guide as a bonus. As the corals in your tank start to grow out, you're going to need to start thinking about dosing your tank. Now, if you're a fish only with live rock type, don't worry about dosing your tank. Your fish could care less whatever the calcium levels are in your tank. But for us coral types, as things start to get bigger, they start to grow rapidly, we need to dose. There's two main ways to do it. One is with liquid or 2-part dosing. The other way is with a calcium reactor. Now, I'm not a fan of calcium reactors unless you're an uber reef junkie. I'm not going to go into that in today's video. That's beyond the scope of what I want to share with you. Therefore, let's talk about liquid or 2-part dosing. There's two main ways you can do it. One is with a dosing pump that can either stand alone or connected to a tank controller like this one. The other way is to do it by hand. There's nothing wrong with doing it by hand. You can certainly do that, but I'm talking about the tank cruise control guide, automation, things getting done for you automatically so you don't have to do it. This tip is going to apply for either route you go, dosing pumps or by hand. So what I want to share with you, well, it's this. When you dose your tank, you want to be consistent about it. You don't want to dose one day and not dose the other. Now, why is that? Well, it goes back to what Carveth was saying about keeping your perimeter stable. Let's look at an example. My old 90-gallon tank, I was dosing 100 milliliters of calcium a day in that tank. That means if I skipped a day, the next day I'd have to make up for it and dose 200 milliliters. Let's say I did it once a week. I'd have to dose nearly a liter of calcium in my tank all at once. If we do it that way, then our calcium level is going to go from very low to very high, like that. Corals do not like roller coaster rides. They like to keep things nice and boring. I call it the most boring roller coaster ride ever. Up, down, a little bit, but that's all. So whatever route you go, dosing pumps or doing it by hand, do it every single day. Make it consistent. That way you keep your perimeter stable, keep everything thriving in your tank. Now in the guide, I go into detail about how to do it with dosing pumps connected to a controller. Remember, automation. So I dig into that, but I'm going to expand. I'm going to put a new video into the guide to talk about not only doing it with dosing pump connected to a controller, I'm going to talk about doing it with a standalone doser, as well as a DIY low-cost solution for automating your dosing for those of you who fear technology. This new video is going to be available for those of you who purchased the Tank Cruise Control Guide in the past, as well as those of you who have picked up the guide right now during my 4th of July special. Now, if you want to find out more about my 4th of July special, just follow the link at the bottom of your screen. There's a look for you inside the Tank Cruise Control Guide via Brandon. Thanks for writing in, Brandon, and Carveth. Thanks to you, Carveth, for writing in as well. Again, if you want to find out more about the 4th of July special I have going on right now, follow the link at the bottom of your screen. Until next time, I'm Mark Callahan, Mr. Saltwater Tank. This has been Mr. Saltwater Tank TV. Have a good one, enjoy your tanks, and know your tank personality.